Have you ever stood at the edge of a new idea or a bold decision and felt a small, sharp voice whisper, "You can't do this"? That whisper is more powerful than we usually admit. It can keep us small, keep us safe, and keep us from becoming the person we want to be. Today, we will learn how to quiet that voice and build real self-belief. Welcome to BetterSelf. This channel combines personal growth with simple, clear English, so you can improve your life and your language at the same time. In this video, we will explore practical tools to overcome self-doubt, step by step, and practice short exercises that help you change how you think, feel, and act. I will speak slowly and clearly, and use examples you can picture easily. This is not a quick fix. It is a gentle, patient path to feeling stronger inside, and speaking to yourself with more kindness and truth. We will move through 10 key chapters. Each chapter focuses on one idea you can use right away. There will be stories, simple analogies, and small tasks you can try as we go. Listen, imagine, and then practice. Over time, these small steps will change how you meet your inner critic and how much you trust yourself. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Understanding self-doubt. Self-doubt is not a moral failure. It is a natural human experience that lives in all of us at different times, and often for good reasons. When we understand where it comes from, we stop giving it so much power. In this chapter, I will explain what self-doubt is, how it forms, and how it shows up in daily life. Imagine a small alarm inside you. When you try something new, the alarm rings. It says, "Be careful." This alarm was useful when humans lived in dangerous places. It helped people avoid harm. But today, our alarms often react to social danger, the fear of looking foolish, making a mistake, or being judged. Self-doubt is that modern alarm. It is a protective mechanism that tries to keep you from risks that might bring embarrassment or rejection. Self-doubt often comes from experiences in your past. Maybe someone important told you that you were not good enough, or you failed once at something meaningful and the feeling stayed. Our brains like patterns, and they learn from what happened before. If you had a harsh teacher, a parent who criticized, or a traumatic failure, your brain stores that as evidence that you cannot do certain things. Later, when a similar situation appears, the brain pulls that memory and rings the alarm again. In this way, self-doubt is a habit of thinking, learned and repeated over time. Self-doubt can also be a sign that you are growing. When you try something big, uncertainty naturally appears. That voice that says you can't is often most loud when we stand near a chance to change our lives. It tries to keep us in the safe zone. If you want growth, you will meet self-doubt. The goal is not to erase it entirely, but to understand it and act anyway. Self-doubt shows in many forms. Sometimes it takes the shape of procrastination. I'll wait until I feel ready. Sometimes it looks like perfectionism. If it is not perfect, I will not show it. Sometimes it becomes avoidance. I will not speak in that meeting because I might say something wrong. Other times it becomes self-criticism. You replay every small mistake and amplify it into proof that you are not capable. These behaviors protect us in the short term but limit us in the long run. A helpful way to see self-doubt is to think of it as a small, nervous character sitting on your shoulder. Give this character a name, like the critic or the alarm. When you notice self-doubt, try to describe it calmly. What does it say? When does it speak? Is it louder at night or before interviews? You are not trying to silence it yet. You are trying to learn its patterns. Now, picture a story I want you to hold. There was a young woman named Maria who wanted to start a small cafe in her town. She loved cooking and had a warm way of making people feel at home. But whenever she imagined opening her bakery, a voice said, "People will not like your food. Your recipes are not original." That voice came from memories of a critical family member who had often compared her cooking to others. For years, Maria listened to the voice and stayed in a comfortable job. One day she noticed that the voice was strongest when she did nothing, and quietest when she actually tried something new. So she practiced making one new pastry a week and invited a neighbor to taste it. Little by little she collected small wins and evidence that did not match the voice. The alarm still rang sometimes, but it grew quieter as she built proof through action. That is the key. Self-doubt is strong when it stands alone with only opinion and fear. It loses strength when you bring facts, action, and experience into the room. The brain loves stories, so if your internal story is mainly about failure, your doubt will feel true. But your life is a long story with many chapters. When you write new scenes with small experiments and real results, the old narrative must change. Start with one small observation today. Listen for the voice. Write down one sentence, it says. Then ask gently, is that always true? Look for one small piece of evidence against that sentence. Maybe you tried something similar before, and it went better than you remember. Or maybe someone once complimented your effort. This practice is not about proving the critic wrong every time. It is about collecting enough truth that your doubts can be balanced by reality. Self-doubt is real, useful in small doses, and changeable over time. When you learn to treat it like a part of yourself that has a job protecting you, you stop fighting it and start redirecting it. In the next chapter, we will meet that inner critic more closely and learn how to talk back with curiosity and compassion. Chapter 2. Meeting the inner critic. When you meet the inner critic, do so as a calm observer, not as a judge. This internal voice often speaks in quick flashes, but it has a pattern if you slow down and listen. In this chapter, we will learn to identify the critic's voice, understand its motives, and respond in a way that weakens its control. The first step to meeting the critic is naming it. The act of naming turns an overwhelming emotion into something manageable. If you name the critic doubt or the perfectionist, you create distance. Imagine you are in a room with a small, anxious dog that barks at every unusual sound. If you sit very close to the dog and tense up, you will feel more anxious. If you step back, calm your breathing, and speak softly to the dog, it will listen. Naming the critic is like stepping back and meeting a small dog with firm kindness. The critic's language often uses absolutes. Always, never, everyone, or nobody. It tends to predict the future negatively and ignore the present facts. This is important to notice, because absolutist language is easy to test. When the critic says you always fail, you can look for the times you did not fail, and you will find them. The brain can get trapped in cognitive habits such as overgeneralization and black and white thinking. These habits create a certainty that feels true, but is only a pattern of thought. A useful tool is to separate the critic's opinion from objective facts. Opinions are shaped by emotions and past experiences. Facts are observable events. When the critic says, "You are not smart enough," ask, "What facts do I have?" Maybe you did well in school, completed a project, or learned a complex skill. These are facts that contradict the critic. The trick is not to argue endlessly, but to gather small, tangible facts and keep them where you can see them. There is also a motive behind the critic's voice. It often tries to protect you from pain of rejection, failure, or embarrassment. Understanding this motive reduces anger toward yourself. If you imagine that the critic is trying to keep you safe, you can respond with compassion and strategy rather than judgment. When someone tries to protect you badly, you would both correct them and thank them for their intention. You can do the same with your inner critic. Here is a story to illustrate this. A young actor named Jonah had strong self-doubt before auditions. The critic in his head said, "You will mess up and everyone will see that you are a fraud." He started avoiding auditions for months. One teacher suggested he approach the critic as a nervous friend, ask it what it fears, and then answer. Jonah asked the critic, "What are you afraid will happen if I fail?" The critic answered, "People will laugh, and you'll lose respect." Jonah then asked, "Have you ever seen someone fail and then recover?" The critic, slightly unsettled, could not find a clear example. Jonah then began small, auditioning for a short piece at a local theater. He did not get the part, but the directors thanked him for his bravery and gave helpful feedback that improved his next audition. Over time, the critic remained but softened when it saw Jonah could handle small failures. When you meet the critic, use a gentle questioning method. Ask, what evidence supports this thought? What evidence contradicts it? What is the worst thing that could happen? Could I survive that? How likely is the worst thing, really? These questions are simple but powerful because they force your mind to check its stories against reality. Another helpful practice is to create a short script you can say to the critic. This script is not about becoming unrealistically positive. It is about being truthful and kind. For example, you might tell the critic, "Thank you for trying to keep me safe. I will be careful, but I will try this anyway. I can handle challenges and learn from them." Repeating this kind of message shifts your response from reactive to intentional. Also notice the tone the critic uses. Is it sarcastic? Is it urgent? Is it quiet and persistent? Matching your tone to be calm and steady matters. The mind listens to tone as much as to words. A calm voice reduces the critic's power. When you feel the critic's voice, breathe slowly. Place your hand over your heart and say the script in a measured tone. The body reacts to this calm and begins to signal safety to your brain. Finally, remember that the critic is not the only voice inside you. There are other voices, the hopeful one, the creative one, the wise one. When you practice meeting the critic with curiosity and facts, you strengthen these other voices. They will speak more often and more clearly. The critic will still show up. Sometimes it will be loud. But with practice, you can invite other voices to the conversation and let them guide your actions. Meeting the inner critic is a skill. It takes time, patience, and repeated practice. But the reward is a kinder, clearer relationship with yourself and more freedom to act. In the next chapter, we will learn how to reframe the stories the critic tells and build a new narrative rooted in evidence and possibility. Chapter 3. Rewriting your story. Your mind loves stories. We make sense of the world by telling ourselves stories about who we are, where we come from, and where we might go. Self-doubt survives by keeping a negative story about your abilities and worth. If you want to change how you feel, you must change the story you tell yourself. In this chapter, we will explore how to rewrite that story in a way that is honest, supportive, and useful. Start by noticing your current story. What is the recurring theme when you think about work, relationships, or creativity? Some people have a story that runs like this: I try hard, but I always fall short. Others have a quieter one: I should stay small so I won't be disappointed. Write down the main sentence that captures your story. Keep it simple, one sentence. Naming the story gives you power over it, because you can then put it on the table and edit it. Stories have 3 parts: the past, the present, and the future. Self-doubt often gets stuck in a past-based narrative. I failed before, therefore I will fail again. Rewriting your story means adding new present facts and possible futures that include growth. The past is part of your story, but not the whole book. A single chapter of failure is not the whole novel. Think of your life as a bookshelf. Past failures are 1 or 2 books on many shelves. When you rewrite the story, you add new books, new chapters of evidence that show different outcomes. A practical method for rewriting is to create a balanced story. For every negative claim your critic makes, create a truthful, balanced alternative. If the critic says you are terrible at public speaking, you might respond with, I have moments of nervousness, and I have given talks that went well. I can improve with practice. This balanced sentence does not deny the past, but it frames it with evidence and possibility. Use specific, short examples when you rewrite your story. Vague positives are easy for the critic to dismiss. Instead of saying, I am talented, say, I completed a presentation last year that received 2 compliments and 1 helpful suggestion. Specifics are harder to argue with. They anchor your new story in reality. Another tool is to include the process, not just the result, in your story. Many people base their identity on outcomes. Success equals worth. If you make your story about learning and growth instead, self-doubt loses much of its power. For example, instead of "I failed at that startup, so I am not cut out for business," reframe to "I tried a business that did not scale, but I learned key lessons about customers and costs that I can use next time." A process-oriented story invites curiosity, not shame. A powerful technique is to imagine your future self and write their journal entry. Picture yourself 1 year from now after practicing small, consistent steps. What would that future person write about the present moment? How would they describe today's doubts? When you write this journal entry, the future self becomes an anchor of possibility. It gives you a roadmap from where you are to where you want to go, and it reduces the critic's sense of finality. Consider a story about a man named Aaron. He had a habit of telling himself he was not creative. He measured success by big visible achievements and compared himself to people who had more followers and more published work. This story kept him from trying small projects. One day, he started a simple practice. He created 1 short poem a week and sent it to 3 friends. He received encouraging notes and small edits that helped him grow. 6 months later, he had 40 poems and a small online following. Aaron rewrote his story by changing the measure of success from external validation to the habit of creation. The critic still whispered, but Aaron had a new archive of work to show that his narrative was incomplete and unfair. Another helpful angle is to claim the adjective that the critic denies. If you feel like an imposter, try saying, "I am learning." If the critic calls you incompetent, try saying, "I am capable of learning new skills." These simple, true statements take the hard edges off the critic's labels. When you rewrite your story, be patient with contradictions. Old stories do not vanish overnight. You will sometimes feel both old doubt and new possibility. That is natural. The important part is to let the new story have space to grow. Keep a visible reminder of your new story. Post it on a mirror, write it in your journal, or record a voice memo you can play when doubts are loud. Finally, practice telling your story aloud to a trusted friend or in front of a camera. Speech makes stories tangible. When you tell a supportive, evidence-based story out loud, you reinforce it in 2 ways. Your mind hears it, and the world can respond to it. Feedback from others can correct distortions and provide real facts to strengthen your new narrative. Rewriting your story is not a trick to cheer yourself up. It is an honest rewrite based on the whole truth, past, present facts, and future possibility. It takes time and steady practice, but each small change in narrative shifts how you experience risk and challenge. In the next chapter, we will turn the new story into action by experimenting with small, low-risk steps that build belief through experience. Chapter 4. Small Experiments. Action over argument. Self-doubt talks a lot. It can argue with you for hours, presenting reasons why you should not act. But action has a different kind of language. It speaks with results. Small experiments are the bridge between what you think and what you know. In this chapter, we will focus on taking tiny, manageable steps that create real evidence and weaken doubt. A small experiment is a low-risk action designed to test a specific belief. It is not a big, all-or-nothing move. It is a focused, simple task that gives you feedback. For example, if you believe you would embarrass yourself by speaking up in a meeting, a small experiment would be to speak once in a short team meeting and observe the outcome. You are not asking for applause or a promotion. You are asking for information. Why do small experiments work? First, they reduce pressure. If you imagine a massive change, the critic grows louder. Small steps feel doable, and the critic is less likely to shout. Second, experiments create data. The mind dislikes uncertainty, but it respects facts. When you perform a small experiment, You collect facts that either support or challenge your belief. Over time, these facts shift the balance toward confidence. Consider the story of Layla, who feared networking events. Her inner critic said, "You sound awkward. People will not want to talk to you." She designed a series of small experiments. On day 1, she went to a short networking lunch and started one conversation by asking a question about a talk she had just heard. On day 2, she introduced herself to one new person at a community event and asked about their work. On day 3, she practiced a 2-minute introduction at a meetup and noted the reactions. Each experiment was small and specific. The results showed that most people were warm and curious, and even when a conversation felt awkward, it ended politely, and nobody judged her harshly. Over time, her belief changed from "I am awkward" to "I can start conversations and learn as I go." Designing experiments requires clarity. Start with a single belief you want to test. Write it down as a simple statement like, "If I post my work online, people will respond harshly." Then design a 1-week experiment that tests this belief. It could be, post one piece of work on a small platform and ask a trusted friend to give feedback. Keep the scope narrow and the time limit short. This gives you permission to try without committing to a long-term path. When you run an experiment, plan what you will observe. Will you look for comments, private messages, polite silence, or constructive criticism? Make a simple list of what counts as supportive data and what counts as disconfirming data. This observation helps you analyze results without letting the critic distort them. A key part of experimentation is reflection. After each action, sit quietly and note 3 things: what happened, how you felt, and what you learned. This reflection is crucial because it turns events into evidence. Without reflection, experiences can slip back into the critic's narrative. With reflection, they become building blocks in your new story. Also accept imperfect outcomes. An experiment does not need to prove your critic wrong in one try. What matters is that you collect information and adjust. If the result is mixed, you refine the experiment and try again. This iterative process is how skills and confidence grow. Think of it as science for your life. Hypothesize, test, observe, and revise. Another advantage of small experiments is that they often lead to surprises. When you expect judgment, you may find kindness. When you expect boredom, you may find connection. These pleasant surprises are powerful because they contradict your anxious predictions with real, unexpected human responses. Here is a practical example for creative work. Suppose you are afraid to share your writing. Your experiment could be to post a short piece on a private blog and invite 3 friends to read it. You might get 2 quiet comments and 1 detailed compliment that points out a strength. That single compliment becomes data that your critic must account for. The critic may still be loud, but it now faces real evidence that your writing connects with at least 1 person. Small experiments also help you build a tolerance for discomfort. Many fears center on the feeling, not the outcome. The act of doing something while feeling anxious teaches your nervous system that discomfort can coexist with safety. Over time, discomfort becomes less frightening. The critic, used to protecting you from discomfort, learns that you can survive it. Finally, celebrate small wins. Do not wait for grand success to acknowledge progress. Each small experiment that yields new information deserves recognition. Celebrating is not vanity. It is a way to reinforce the behavior that builds confidence. Small experiments are the practical heart of change. They give you real evidence, reduce pressure, and cultivate resilience. When you combine them with the story work from the previous chapter, you create a powerful cycle. New stories lead to experiments. Experiments produce evidence, and evidence strengthens new stories. In the next chapter, we will look at how deliberate practice builds competence and deep confidence over time. Chapter 5. Building competence through practice. Confidence is not only a feeling, it is often a direct result of competence. When you get better at something, The inner critic has fewer true reasons to doubt you. In this chapter, we will explore how deliberate practice builds skill, and therefore steady, lasting self-belief. Practice is not merely repeating an action. Deliberate practice is focused, structured, and feedback-driven. It targets specific weaknesses and uses consistent repetition to improve them. Think of practice like sculpting a statue. If you just swing the hammer without plan, you make noise and risk damage. But if you chip away at one small area with attention, the shape starts to appear. Competence grows from careful, manageable improvements. Start by choosing one skill to develop that relates to your area of doubt. If you doubt your public speaking, work on voice projection and structure. If you doubt your writing, practice clear opening sentences. Break each skill into small, measurable parts. This decomposition makes practice less overwhelming and more precise. A story helps here. Consider May, who doubted her leadership ability. She felt anxious running team meetings and feared that she would lose control. Instead of trying to become a good leader overnight, she focused on one micro-skill, preparing a clear agenda for each meeting. She practiced creating agendas that listed time, purpose, and one key decision. She asked a colleague for feedback on clarity. Over several months, her meetings became more efficient, and the team responded with better outcomes. Mai's confidence grew because she saw real improvement in a concrete area. Feedback is essential. Many people practice in isolation and hope improvement will come. But without feedback, you risk reinforcing bad habits. Seek feedback from mentors, peers, or objective sources like recorded performances. For example, record yourself giving a short talk and then watch it with a checklist. Did you speak clearly? Did you make eye contact? What can you change next time? The checklist turns subjective feelings into objective tasks. A principle to follow is slow, steady progress. Rapid change often feels like a rush and can be destabilizing. Small, consistent practice sessions, say 20 to 30 minutes daily, produce deeper learning than occasional long sessions. The brain consolidates change during repetition and sleep. Consistency beats intensity over the long run. Another key is to practice at the edge of your ability. If you always practice things that are easy for you, you will not grow. If you always work on things that are too hard, you will become discouraged. The sweet spot is slightly challenging tasks that require focused attention and stretch your current skill level. This is where neural growth happens. Let me share a real-world example from sports. Emily, a beginner runner, felt self-doubt when comparing herself to more experienced athletes. Her coach helped her set weekly goals that increased her running load by 5 to 10%. She practiced interval training and kept a log of times and feelings. Over months, her pace improved noticeably. The log became concrete proof of progress and quieted the critic that said, "You're not a runner." Deliberate practice also includes reflection. After each session, briefly note what improved and what needs work. This creates a feedback loop where practice informs the next session. Over time, you build a personal map of progress, and that map becomes a source of trust in your ability to grow. Skills transfer matters too. Often, fear in one area is rooted in a broader lack of confidence. The discipline you build in one domain can spill over into others. A writer who practices daily discipline learns focus that helps in public speaking. A musician who learns to accept small mistakes gains emotional resilience that helps in relationships. Notice how competence in one place strengthens the whole self. Perfectionism can block practice. If you only want to practice when you perform perfectly, you will stall. Embrace messy practice. Allow early drafts, imperfect rehearsals, and failed attempts. Learning thrives in the messy middle. When you accept that practice is developmental rather than declarative, you free yourself to learn more quickly. Another practical tip is to schedule regular review sessions where you measure your progress. Use a simple metric: number of completed practice sessions, improvement in speed, or increased accuracy. Keep these records visible. Evidence of progress is a powerful antidote to doubt. Finally, remember the role of patience. Building real competence takes time. The critic often wants instant proof. The patient artisan knows that mastery is a slow accumulation of small wins. Respect the process and treat yourself kindly through it. Deliberate practice is a reliable path to quieting doubt because it produces facts you cannot easily dismiss. As your skill grows, your sense of agency grows, and the inner critic loses ground. In the next chapter, we will explore how identity and belief systems influence self-doubt and how to change the story at the level of identity. Chapter 6. Shifting Identity, the I am statement. The way you describe yourself matters. I'm always anxious sounds different inside your mind than I get anxious sometimes. Small shifts in language can shape your identity and how you behave. In this chapter, we will examine the power of I am statements and how to cultivate an identity that supports confidence and growth. Identity is not a fixed label. It is a story you repeat to yourself. When you say I am not a creative person often, your mind starts to look for evidence that fits that phrase. This is called identity-consistent behavior. The brain seeks information that confirms the story you tell. But you can change the story by changing your language and actions together. Begin by noticing your I am statements. What sentences do you use to describe yourself when you are alone? Do you say, I am bad at interviews, I am shy, or I am not a leader? Write down the recurring ones. These are the scripts that guide your choices, often without your awareness. Next, experiment with small identity shifts using 2 steps, language and behavior. Language alone is not enough. It needs action to be believable. If you want to shift from I am not a speaker to I am a growing speaker, pair the new statement with small behaviors like practicing a 2-minute talk each week or joining a small speaking club. The behavior provides the evidence your mind needs to accept the new identity. Make the new I am statement specific, positive, and credible. Vague or overreaching claims are easy for the critic to attack. Instead of I am successful, try I am a person who practices consistently, or I am someone who seeks feedback. These statements are tied to actions and are harder to dispute. Use miniature commitments to embody the new identity. If you want to be someone who shares work, commit to posting 1 short piece per month. If you want to be a person who speaks up, promise to make 1 comment in a meeting. These small commitments are identity experiments. You act as if the new identity is true, and each action reinforces it. There is a story that illustrates this well. Thomas believed he was not a manager. He avoided leadership roles and assumed he lacked the temperament. A mentor suggested a small identity shift. Try being the coordinator for a 1-day training session. Thomas agreed. He organized the agenda, handled logistics, and led a 5-minute introduction. He felt awkward, but the experience gave him concrete evidence that he could manage small events. Over several such experiences, Thomas started to think of himself differently. The I am statement shifted from I am not a manager to I am someone who can lead small initiatives, and later to larger roles. Another useful practice is to keep a proof file. Save emails, notes, or images that show you acting in line with the new identity. When doubt surfaces, open this file and read the evidence. The file becomes a visible record of who you are becoming, and it helps your mind accept the new story. Be mindful of the danger of labels that are too rigid. Saying I am shy as a static fact can trap you. Instead, use dynamic language. I tend to be quiet in new groups, and I'm learning to speak up. This phrasing acknowledges the pattern without making it a permanent identity. Also, allow for identity complexity. People are many things at once. You can be an anxious parent and a confident worker in different contexts. Accepting complexity reduces the power of any single negative label. It creates flexibility and compassion. Speak to yourself as you would to someone learning new skills. If a friend were trying to change, you would likely encourage them gently. Use the same tone internally. Replace harsh judgment with curiosity and direction. For example, instead of "I am terrible at networking," you can say, "I am learning how to connect with people in a way that feels natural to me." Another important point is social identity. The groups you belong to influence who you think you are. Surrounding yourself with people who model the identity you want helps. If you want to be more confident, spend time with people who handle setbacks calmly and who give honest, constructive feedback. You will pick up their language and habits. Finally, remember that identity change is slow but powerful. Each small action that aligns with your chosen "I am" statement is a deposit into a new identity bank account. Over time, these deposits add up and reshape how you see yourself and how you move in the world. Shifting your "I am" statements changes how your brain searches for evidence and how you behave in small moments. Combine new language with consistent action, and you will rebuild your identity in a way that supports confidence and reduces self-doubt. In the next chapter, we will explore how your social environment and comparisons shape doubt and what to do about it. Chapter 7. The Role of Environment and Comparison. We often think of self-doubt as purely internal, but the world around us plays a large role. Our social environment, the people we spend time with, and the media we consume shape our sense of possibility and worth. In this chapter, we will examine how comparison fuels doubt and how to craft an environment that supports growth. Comparison is a natural human habit. We look at others to measure where we stand. But the problem is that comparisons are rarely fair. We compare our messy behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel. Social media, in particular, shows a narrow view of success: polished achievements, filtered photos, and short clips of high moments. If you spend time measuring yourself against that, you will often come up short. Recognize that comparison is not evidence. It is an interpretation. Think of comparison like two windows. One shows a cropped, shiny image of someone else that lacks context. The other window shows your full, real life, including the hard work, failures, and small steps. Comparing the staged window to your full view is a recipe for self-doubt. The remedy is to choose healthier windows, sources that show process and honesty rather than only outcomes. One practical strategy is to limit exposure to environments that trigger unhealthy comparison. This could mean reducing time on certain social platforms, unfollowing accounts that spark envy, or spending less time with people who constantly one-up you. Your attention is a resource. Protect it. Replace these influences with content that models growth, not perfection. Look for creators who share process, mistakes, and lessons learned. Another key factor is the company you keep. People in your immediate social circle act like mirrors reflecting who you can be. Supportive people who encourage your growth, give honest feedback, and celebrate small wins are invaluable. Conversely, people who constantly criticize or belittle your efforts make your critic louder. Consider creating a small circle of trusted supporters who understand your goals and offer constructive, kind feedback. Comparison can also be turned into a productive tool when used carefully. Instead of comparing outcomes only, study the process of someone you admire. Ask, how did they get there? What habits support their success? This turns envy into curiosity and learning. For example, if you admire a writer's success, look into their daily writing habits, their editing process, and how they handle rejection. You may find practices you can adapt rather than impossible standards to match. There is also a local comparison solution. Use your past self as the primary benchmark. Track small metrics of growth that matter to you, like consistency, skill improvement, or emotional resilience. When you measure against your own earlier self, you create a fairer, more encouraging standard. This habit reduces the power of external comparisons and builds an internal sense of progress. Consider the story of Nina, who worked in tech and constantly compared herself to colleagues who seemed more successful. She felt invisible and incompetent. She began a deliberate change. She limited social scrolling, joined a small mastermind group with 3 peers who shared honest feedback, and kept a weekly log of her accomplishments. The combination of curated environment and self-measurement changed her perspective. She realized her path had a different timeline, and she began to focus on her own progress rather than other people's highlight reels. Another tactic is to reframe comparison into inspiration. When you notice jealousy, ask, what specifically triggers me? What part of their journey do I admire? Can I borrow their practices? This transforms negative emotion into strategic insight. Also mind the role of praise and critique in your environment. Excessive praise can create a fear of losing approval, while constant critique can create paralysis. Seek balanced feedback that highlights strengths and points to clear next steps. You can develop a network of people who give this kind of feedback by modeling it yourself. Be honest, kind, and practical when you give others notes. Designing your physical environment matters too. Spaces influence behavior. If you want to write, create a small corner dedicated to writing with few distractions. If you want to practice speaking, set up a quiet place where you can record yourself. Small physical choices reduce friction and support new habits, which in turn reduce doubt because progress becomes easier to make. Finally, create rituals that reinforce your values and reduce comparison. Rituals could be weekly reflection sessions, a monthly progress review, or a daily gratitude practice. Rituals create structure and a sense of continuity that helps maintain focus on your own path. Your environment is not destiny, but it is a powerful influence. Curate the people, media, and places around you to reflect the story you want to become. Use comparison wisely as a learning tool rather than a measure of worth. By doing this, you create a landscape where self-doubt has less room to grow and your own belief can flourish. In the next chapter, we will tackle fear and failure directly and learn how to make them allies rather than enemies. Chapter 8. Embracing failure and managing fear. Fear and failure are close relatives of self-doubt. They are signals that something matters to you. If you can change your relationship to fear and failure, you will free yourself from a lot of paralyzing doubt. In this chapter, we will learn how to treat failure as feedback and fear as information. The first step is redefinition. Failure is often seen as an endpoint, a proof of inadequacy. But it is more useful to see failure as information, data about what did not work and where you might adjust. This shift transforms the emotional charge of failure into a neutral, useful input. When you treat failure as data, you can ask different questions. What did this teach me? What small change can I make next? Who can I ask for insight? A well-known story is Thomas Edison's many attempts to create a working light bulb. He did not see his thousands of trials as proof of inability. He saw them as steps toward the solution. Edison reportedly said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This reframing is not flippant optimism. It is a practical stance toward problem solving. Fear, too, carries useful information. Fear often signals uncertainty or a perception of risk. Instead of allowing fear to veto action, use it to clarify what matters. Ask, what exactly am I afraid will happen? Is this fear about how others will see me, or about a real practical harm? Can I reduce the risk with a small experiment or a safety plan? Often fear focuses on the worst-case scenario, which is rare. When you name the fear precisely, it loses some of its vague power. Learn to practice safe failures. These are experiments with limited downside, but useful feedback. For example, if you fear speaking in front of a large crowd, start with a small group of friends. If you worry a new product might fail, launch a minimal version to a few customers. Safe failures protect your self-worth while giving you information to improve. It helps to normalize the emotional side of failure. Many successful people have stories of repeated setbacks. J.K. Rowling's early manuscripts were rejected multiple times. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. These stories do not erase the pain of failure, but they show that setbacks are often part of any meaningful path. Knowing this reduces the isolation and shame that feeds self-doubt. Another practical technique is to write a failure resume. This is a list of things you tried that did not work. It sounds odd, but making this list demonstrates that risk-taking has brought you learning and growth. It helps you see failure as a badge of courage rather than a scarlet letter. As you review the list, you will notice patterns and lessons you can use. Build routines that prepare you for setbacks. Emotional resilience is not an abstract trait. It is built by simple practices: sleep, movement, small social connections, and reflection. When your basic needs are met, you recover from failure more quickly. The critic has less ground to amplify negative stories when your body and mind are rested and supported. Another essential principle is to separate self-worth from performance. Many people feel their value depends on success. This connection creates high stakes for every action. Instead, practice unconditional self-acceptance. You are already worthy of care and respect, even when things go poorly. This does not excuse harm or avoid responsibility. It creates a secure base from which you can take risks. A helpful exercise is to imagine your future self looking back at a present failure. Would they judge you harshly, or would they see this as a stepping stone? This perspective can soften the intensity of present fear and give you courage to try. Also, cultivate curiosity after setbacks. Ask open-ended questions like, what did I not know that I needed to know? Or what small change could make a big difference? Curiosity interrupts the critic's narrative and replaces it with problem-solving energy. Finally, celebrate the courage to fail. Saying I tried and it did not work is a meaningful action. Recognize your willingness to take a shot, because it shows you are moving outside comfort, which is where growth happens. Over time, frequent small risks build a sense of mastery and reduce the critic's power. Fear and failure will not disappear. But when you reframe them as useful signals, design safe failures, and build resilience through routine and curiosity, they become allies on the path to competence and confidence. In the next chapter, we will learn practical techniques to quiet the inner critic in the moment, including mindfulness, self-compassion, and simple cognitive tools. Chapter 9. Practical Tools to Quiet the Critic. There are many practical tools that help quiet the inner critic in real time. These tools are not magic. They are methods that change how you respond to negative thoughts and emotions so you can act despite them. In this chapter, we will cover mindfulness, self-compassion, cognitive techniques, and simple daily practices you can use immediately. Mindfulness is the practice of observing your thoughts and feelings without getting lost in them. It helps you notice the critic's voice as just a mental event, not an absolute truth. A simple mindfulness practice is the breath check. Pause for 30 seconds, breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 1, and exhale for 6. As you breathe, watch the critic's thoughts come and go like clouds. You do not need to stop the thoughts, just notice them. This creates distance and reduces reactivity. Self-compassion is another crucial tool. When the critic attacks, treat yourself as you would a friend who is struggling. Offer supportive phrases such as, "This is hard right now," or "I'm doing my best with what I know." Research shows that self-compassion reduces anxiety and improves motivation. It is not indulgence, it is wise care that helps you recover and try again. Cognitive techniques help you challenge distorted thoughts. One effective method is the evidence check. When the critic states something strong like "you always fail," ask for specific evidence. Write down 3 facts that contradict the claim. This practice moves thinking from emotion-driven to fact-based, and facts are harder for the critic to deny. Another cognitive tool is downshifting language. Replace extreme words with milder ones. Change "I can't do this" to "I am learning how to do this." Change "this will ruin everything" to "this is one setback among many possible outcomes. Downshifting calms the language and reduces the critic's fuel. Behavioral tools include distraction and scheduling worry. If your critic becomes loud and intrusive, give it a scheduled time to speak. For example, Allow yourself 15 minutes in the afternoon to write down worries and possible responses. Outside that time, redirect attention to focused work. This approach compartmentalizes worry and prevents it from leaking into every moment. Another behavioral tool is to create a confidence anchor. This is a short, repeatable action that grounds you when doubt appears. It could be a 5-word mantra, a quick posture adjustment, or a short walk. For example, stand tall, breathe deeply, and say, "I can learn before a stressful event." Over time, the anchor becomes a conditioned cue that calms your nervous system. Journaling is a practical way to quiet the critic over time. Keep 2 columns, one for critical thoughts and one for balanced responses. When you write the critic's statement in the left column, respond with evidence and perspective on the right. Doing this daily trains your mind to consider alternatives and builds a habit of balanced thinking. Use visualization carefully. Visualizing success can motivate action, but pairing visualization with realistic preparation is more effective. Try a 2-part visualization. First, visualize performing the task and experiencing small difficulties. Then visualize responding skillfully to those difficulties. This prepares you for reality and reduces the shock of setbacks. Social tools matter too. When the critic speaks loudly, share your concern with a trusted friend or mentor and ask for perspective. Others often see facts you miss. A quick conversation can recalibrate your assessment and provide encouragement. For long-term maintenance, create a toolkit of small rituals that signal competence. These might include a morning review of one small achievement, a weekly reflection on lessons learned, and a monthly progress check where you measure specific metrics of growth. Rituals create regular evidence and reduce the critic's power over time. Finally, be patient with tools. Not every technique will work for every person. Try different methods and notice what helps you calm down and act. Combine approaches: mindfulness to reduce reactivity, cognitive checks to challenge thoughts, and behavioral anchors to move you into action. Practical tools are like instruments in a toolbox. When the critic appears, reach into your toolbox and apply the method that fits the moment. With regular use, these tools make the inner critic less dominant and your responses more intentional. In the final chapter, we will bring everything together into a sustainable self-belief practice you can use every day. Change happens over time, not in moments. A sustainable self-belief practice is a set of habits and rituals that steadily build confidence, reduce doubt, and create resilience. In this final chapter, we will design a practical daily framework you can use to make progress every week, month, and year. Begin with a simple daily routine. A short morning ritual sets the tone for the day and anchors you in purpose. Your morning ritual could include 3 parts: a 1-minute review of yesterday's small win, a 30-second breathing exercise, and a clear intention for one focused task you will do today. The win review reminds your mind that you are capable. The breathing calms the nervous system. The intention directs energy. Keep this routine short so it is easy to do consistently. Next, schedule small practice sessions tied to your main goal. If your goal is to feel more confident speaking, schedule 3 short practice sessions each week. If your goal is to build creativity, commit to 1 short creative task each day. Consistency beats intensity. These sessions are your investment in competence, and regular deposits of effort create measurable growth. Add a weekly reflection ritual. Find 10 minutes each week to write 3 things that went well, 1 challenge you faced, and 1 specific lesson you will apply next week. This ritual keeps your focus on learning and prevents small setbacks from feeling like disaster. It also builds a running record of progress that you can review when doubt resurfaces. Create a monthly experiment. Pick 1 belief you want to test and design a small experiment around it. Run the experiment for a month and collect simple data. At the end of the month, evaluate what you learned and adjust. This cycle of experimentation keeps you curious and prevents the critic from becoming an unquestioned authority. Build social support into your practice. Choose 1 or 2 people who will act as accountability partners or mentors. Meet them regularly for honest feedback and encouragement. Social support is not about approval. It is about perspective and reality checks that reduce distorted self-views. Cultivate a proof file as mentioned earlier. Keep it digital or physical. Collect emails, testimonials, photos of completed work, and notes about small wins. When the critic intensifies, review this file. It is a practical reminder that you have evidence of growth and skill. Set long-term milestones with flexible timelines. Avoid rigid deadlines that create high pressure and fuel doubt when you miss them. Instead, create milestones that represent progress and allow room for learning. For each milestone, list small, manageable steps to reach it. This breaks big goals into achievable parts. Incorporate rest and recovery deliberately. Confidence is fragile when you are exhausted. Schedule regular breaks, sleep and activities that renew you, walks, social time, hobbies. These are not luxuries. They are essential practices that improve focus and emotional balance. Practice gratitude and compassion. Each evening, note one thing you are grateful for and one kind thing you did for yourself. Gratitude widens your perspective beyond immediate fear, and compassion creates a secure base for more risk-taking. Finally, build a long-term narrative that includes setbacks as normal. Frame your life as a learning journey where each chapter teaches something necessary for the next. Revisit your story periodically and update it with new evidence of growth. Tell your future self story now. Imagine where you want to be in 1 year and write the steps that will get you there. Here's a simple weekly template to guide you. On Monday, set one clear intention. On Wednesday, run a short experiment. On Friday, reflect and record one win. On Sunday, plan next week's practice and review your proof file. This rhythm keeps momentum steady and doubt manageable. Remember, sustainability is about small, consistent actions that add up. Your inner critic may continue to speak, but a steady practice creates a decorated path of evidence that gradually rewrites your internal narrative. Trust the process, not the noise. Be kind to yourself in the in-between moments. You now have tools, practices, and a plan. Use them patiently. Each small step toward competence and self-kindness builds a foundation of real self-belief. Over time, the inner critic will still visit, but you will be stronger and kinder in how you respond. You will move forward with clearer purpose and more courage. Today, we explored self-doubt from many angles: how it forms, how to meet the inner critic, how to rewrite your story, and how small experiments, deliberate practice, identity shifts, environment design, and tools like mindfulness and self-compassion help you build real confidence. Each chapter offered practical steps you can try this week. Remember, the journey is slow but steady. Start with one small experiment and one tiny change in how you speak to yourself. You are not alone in this. Self-doubt visits everyone at times. The difference is not whether it appears, but how you meet it. Be curious, gather evidence, act kindly, and keep practicing. Over time, your actions will outvote your doubts. If you found this helpful, subscribe to BetterSelf for more clear English lessons combined with practical personal growth tools. Try one of the small practices from this video today, and let us know how it goes in the comments. Keep going, keep experimenting, and trust that each small step builds a stronger self. You are capable of more than you think, and you can prove it, one small action at a time.